Never seen a smile so big on my little old lady's face until I tell her I'm going fishing all weekend. Pack up all of my bait and I make plans for 7:45 and I swing around, pick up my date for the weekend. Some reason she seems to please when I'm leaving. There's something I'm missing when I'm gone fishing. When I'm gone fishing. When I'm gone fishing.
Yeah, baby.
Yes, sir. Good evening, folks. How we doing? Hope everybody had a great weekend. Hope you all enjoyed what hopefully was just a typical boring Monday. I will say this: what isn't going to be boring is this show. I could tell just by the lads behind the scenes that we're going to be entertained tonight. You can tell they're chomping at the bit and they're excited to be here, and they've got lots to talk about. So I'm looking forward to that. Good to see you, Terry. Good to see you, Ed. How you doing, Curtis? James in the house. Lloyd's here with us. Eve, nice to see you as well. Shane Rashad, yeah, baby. Frostbite Dinner Bell. It's actually interesting you mentioned that, Shane. We were talking about that just behind stage. They are the real deal, and Jay Barnews will tell you that. Christina, how you doing? Yes, it was. Took me a little bit of time to put it together, and we will probably, I would say, evolve on it because, here's the biggest problem, and I apologize for everyone who wasn't included in the video. It wasn't easy. I was talking to Steve Shaw on the weekend, and I said the hardest part is trying to get everybody involved. As I said, guys, CFN is all about you. It isn't about me. It's not about Jim. It's not about Mike Console or Lawrence or Jay. It's about the entire community. So the more we get all of you involved, the happier I will be. So stay tuned to that. But big shout out to our community and all those great opportunities that we got to get some great content to add to our intro. Jeanette, happy belated birthday to you. Jeanette's with us. Mike's nice to see you. Sparkus is in the house. How you doing? Do you remember that when we were at Mitchell's Ice Hut, bud? That was a few years ago. John's with us. Good to see you, John. As I said, we've got lots to talk about. There's a lot of things going on. CFN is an extremely busy place, and I don't want to belay any more than I already have with these flapping gums. So as I said, hello. Hope you guys had a great weekend. Stick around. This is actually going to be a really good show. Obviously, as I mentioned, the intro, that's what we're going to be using for a while. Obviously, when I get a little bit more time and I get a little bit more creative, we'll see what we can do to add a little bit, add a few more of you. But for right now, that's what we're going to use because, as I said, that took me pretty much all Sunday just trying to put that all together. So, yeah, we'll keep it for a bit, but it's not to say that that will be used forever. So, as I said, your content, just so you know, your content will be used on a regular basis at CFN, and we can't thank you enough. Speaking of which, can't thank you all enough for sending all of your picks in to our inbox of CFN. It makes our job and our editor's job so much easier. And I'll tell you, what Steve and Walter are doing, for some of your photos is absolutely remarkable. Where we've come from the very beginnings, we almost are at a point where we'd like to apologize for what we were putting out before to what we're putting out now. The creativity level is like through the roof. And I'm so proud. It's so awesome to see pics like you saw that little baby in the trout net on Sunday. Man, I'll tell you, I love seeing stuff like that. I eat that stuff up, and the fact that you all loved it and shared it, it means the world to us. Because at the end of the day, as us editors, we'll spend anywhere between 5 to 25 minutes on a photo, putting it all together, maybe even more. And the ultimate pat on the back for all of us is that you share it. And when you make it your profile pic, well, that's hitting it out of the park. So again, thanks to all you for sending in. Keep it going. I'd like to say that contest that we ran for the Next Gen CFN certainly has opened the door to a lot of young anglers, and we're seeing a lot more picks from young anglers. Keep it going, because 2022, it is the year of Next Gen and getting our kids involved and passionate about angling. Also, there's some videos that have appeared for Cooking with CFN. Big shout out to Terry and Walt recently, who did a fantastic recipe. So if you haven't gone to Cooking with CFN, look it up on Facebook. As I said, you will not be disappointed. Some incredible recipes are being shared there. Craig Ainsworth, how you doing, buddy? Way out in BC. I'll tell you, talking about weather, and we'll discuss that. You're going to hear a lot of Ontarians right now complaining about how cold it is, but we all know how cold it's been out west. And I do believe you have our warmth in BC and Alberta. I think it's 7 degrees right now in Calgary. Bit of a shift. As it is right now, it's as cold in Winnipeg as it is in Timmins. Ridiculously cold, unbelievably cold. So, as much as we may complain about it, make sure you stay safe, stay inside, stay warm. Because that is it's dangerous cold, very dangerous cold. Obviously, some announcements that I want to mention at the outset, just before we came on live here. You saw that there's going to be some meet and greets, one of which we are hoping to have here in Ontario. It's postponed right now just because of COVID, so fingers crossed we'll be able to do it, but it's going to be on Stokel Lake, and Fanatics Outfitters are going to put us up hopefully later on this month. I've been talking to Jen Harlow in regards to it, and right now we have 10 that will hopefully be able to postpone, but as it is right now, it's just not the right thing to do. And as a community, we got to set a standard. We got to set an example. I feel bad for the outfitters that are having to deal with all this. You're just trying to make a buck, and I get it. But unfortunately, as a community, it's just not the right thing to do. And as much as we want to pass on the passion of fishing, we also got to pass on safety and keep that paramount. So unfortunately, we have postponed it. We were going to do it on the 16th of January, as I mentioned on a couple lives before. It was tentative, so we didn't want to get too much into the details, just in case we had to postpone it. And of course, COVID's not allowing us to do it. However, in our CFN Saskatchewan chapter, as you saw, we posted it. There is going to be a meet and greet February 5th and 6th at Canassie Lake. Did I say that right? Canassie Lake. That's out in Saskatchewan. So if you are looking to get involved, you're looking for possibly a room to stay overnight. They have cabins there as well. Canassie Lake and Cabins. Sorry, Canassie Inn and Cabins. Make sure you give them a shout and see if you can book a room. Outside of that, if you want to join, Walter and Rob Alspatch are the two, and Lloyd would be the three of them out that way to contact. But I know Walter has done a fantastic job organizing all that. But February 5th and 6th at Canassie Lake, hopefully, fingers crossed, COVID allows us to partake in that. Which, of course, leads me to our next announcement, which Mike and I are really excited to talk about, which is the Winter Fish Fest. And that will be starting February 1st. But you know what? Let me not talk about it. Let me bring in Mike, because this is the expert when it comes to our CFN Fish Off events. Mike, how you doing tonight, buddy?
Good.
Happy New Year to you, by the way. It's been a while. We haven't seen each other in a while, so nice to see you.
Happy New Year to all those who weren't here last Monday. I'll be quick because I'm like the warm-up band to the stars coming up later in the show. So I'll be quick. But speaking about the Winter Fish Fest, and Scotty, if you could share that screen that says Winter Fish Fest right there, that'd be awesome. So the Winter Fish Fest coming February 1st. That's like 3 weeks from now. And we're, like we mentioned last week, we are going to try this new app called the My Catch app. and it's through Anglers Atlas. So all you have to do is go to the CFN Fish Off website and register. We have different categories. We have our yellow perch category, our trout/char, northern pike, sunfish, and then open species. In every single category, we're giving not one, but 2 prizes. A prize for the longest fish of that category, as well as any fish entered in that category, you're automatically in that category draw. So it doesn't even matter if you catch a 3-inch perch, you can win a prize. So you'll win a prize for the biggest perch, but you'll also have a chance to win a prize for any fish you enter in those categories. Plus, we have a grand prize draw. Plus, we have a kids draw. So enter. It's free. It's fun. You're fishing anyways. You might as well go to the website, download the app, enter your fish.
Absolutely. And you know what? What's really interesting, Mike, and Lawrence and I are going to be talking about it later, is we are going to dive in to those who represent Anglers Atlas and their app. We're going to be talking about it, some of the benefits of that app and how it can be used for us anglers. And I'll tell you, Mike, it spearheads exactly what we're trying to get the message out around here is we want angler input when it comes to the science. And this Anglers Atlas app, whew, does it ever speak to that, man? I'm really excited to dive more into it with Lawrence and, of course, his panel that we're going to be discussing on a podcast for Bluefish Radio. It's a cooperative event that's going to be coming up this month. But I tell you, I'm looking forward to it because what an app, what a concept, and anything that gets anglers involved, I'm all for.
Actually, there is a message from Lloyd. Lloyd, I think this poster is wrong. It's actually the trout. I believe the trout is in the open species category because I know we do have, and I would never leave out walleye because of Scotty. So we'll adjust the poster.
You know what? Your segment was almost done right about there, Lloyd.
We'll adjust the poster. We'll add walleye in there, and any trout or char you catch would be entered into the open species category. So if you want to register, all you got to do is go to CFN Fish Off website. Scott, if you switch screens, and I'll just show that.
I will just, Tammy, you've got a great question. And this is something that, as I said, we're going to be talking about with the innovators of this app. We're going to be discussing exactly that. But to answer your question real quick, the answer is no. Basically, it'll be a body of water that's going to be descriptive of the fish that are caught, where they're caught. They will explain how that information is dealt with. But yes, they are not going to try and find out your hotspots. They're not going to try and find out your coordinates. All that stuff is it's all private. All they want to do is catch or capture the information that is caught with your catches, and will be shared for science. And as I said, that's near and dear to my heart. Anyway, sorry.
And it's right there in the rules. So when you go to anglersatlas.com/tournaments, you'll see a bunch of tournaments. One of them is the Winter Fish Fest. Register there. You'll see the rules. And right there, clear in bold in the rules, it says secret spot stay secret. So your information is not shared with any other angler.
Right on.
All right. So here's the website. All you got to do is go to the website, cfnfishoff.com, and click the Winter Fish Fest logo. Here, easy 2 steps. Go to anglersatlas.com/tournaments, and then download the MyCatch app, and all the information is there. So that's easy. But some of you might be wondering, what is that other post? What is that post right there?
Oof.
And that post is ordering this. Right now, there's only 1 copy, and the 1 copy is right here. But if you want your own exclusive CFN Fish Off hoodie, because we have a lot of CFN gear, but we have never come out with any CFN Fish Off gear. That's what it looks like. And there's anher great.
I've got a couple other pictures myself, Mike, that I can share.
Yeah, go ahead.
I've got so yeah, that's the main picture. So there's what it looks like. Those are the logos that you're going to have on it. As I said, Mike mentioned it is a hoodie, more like a jacket, more like a spring jacket. Of course, you know, the CFN Fish Off, when it runs, it is paralleling that time of year and that season. So, as I said, this answers and ticks a lot of boxes. So,
yeah,
we have kept it extremely reasonably priced, which will include shipping. We'll discuss all that unless you're going to discuss it now, Mike.
Sure. So it is a nice zip up hoodie, and the cost is cheaper than any hoodie we have ever sold on the CFN site, and it is $45.50 plus HST plus shipping. $45.50. That is it. You got to add tax and shipping on top of that, but this is the cheapest hoodie that we have ever sold. $45.50. So you only have until January 31st because we're taking orders, and then we're gonna send the order out and get them made. So you have from now till the end of the month before the Winter Fish Fest. Put in your order. Just go to the website and order there.
Yeah, it is. You're right. It is. It's a reasonable price. I don't know about crazy cheap, Jeanette, but these days, during these times, anything that's under $100 truly is few and far between when it comes to apparel. And as I said, Mike, hats off to you for being able to source this out and making it affordable for our community.
Amazing. So that is it for me. The opening band is done, and let's call on the main acts.
Right on, Mike. Well, listen, I guess we'll stay tuned to what is going to be coming hopefully in February. The beautiful thing about the Winter Fish Fest, of course, is it does not promote gatherings. So the idea is you can fish by yourself, which of course speaks to COVID and all the restrictions that are accompanied to that. We are feverishly trying to put that together. And if you are a tackle producer or anybody else that wants to offer up some prizes for our Winter Fish Fest, please do so. Please contact either me or Mike so that we can get you some wicked promotion and pass along some of your incredible stuff to our community.
All right, Scotty. Thanks, everyone. Winter Fish Fest. Go to the website, order your hoodie, go to the website. Everything starts February 1st. And make sure to order your hoodie before February 1st.
You might want to tune in, Mike, to that podcast that we're going to be doing with Lawrence. So we can find out. You probably know just as much as I'm going to find out from the people who conducted it and created it. But I just think it's so awesome that some of the content is going to be used for science, not giving it away. I think it was Kevin Lowen that was talking about Aaron Weeb. I did hear that about Fish Donkey, that some of the information, there was a rumor going around that Aaron was using a lot of the submissions to find where the fish were. Anglers Atlas doesn't work like that.
Yeah, and we can get them on Facebook Live here. Why don't I reach out to them as well?
Amen, brother. Right on. In the meantime, dude, stay classy. And I love that 6-pound bass you got behind you.
Right. Where is it? Right
it's
over there.
As you are, dude.
Only 5.5. 5.5, Scotty.
He looks hungry, man. I can get out of it. Right on, dude. You take care of yourself.
Peace.
All right, bud. Fantastic to see Mike. It's not often that the two of us are in the same room together. Both of us are extremely busy, but I'll tell you, that man does an awful lot of work, not just for CFN, but for our upcoming generations of kids at the Catholic School Board. So hats off to him. He is a busy man. Speaking of busy men, we got Big Jim McLaughlin coming up right after this. There he is, the one and only, the master, the myth, the legend.
Hey, what's going on?
McLaughlin. Rah! How you doing, bud? Yeah,
I'm alive. Plugging away, buddy. Plugging away.
Well, and this is the beautiful thing about you, bud. You always seem to come here with a big smile on your face, regardless of what's going on behind the scenes or in your life. But I know a lot of us. I've been fielding quite a few questions in regards to Tammy, and there is some good news. There's some bit of light at the end of the tunnel. So why don't you fill us in?
Yeah, it was really funny. Well, it wasn't funny, but we eventually got a call from the head of neurosurgery at the Civic Hospital, whom through some friends and that I managed to get a call into, and he agreed to take Tammy's case. And he called her, and they called and said, "Can you come in? Can you come in on Wednesday?" And we said, "Sure." And his assistant was getting the records from Kingston Hospital, and he said, "I'm going to get them and look them over, and I'll talk to her on Wednesday." And 45 minutes later, he called back and he said, "Can you get your wife here as soon as you can get her here?"
Not the greatest call you'd want to feel behind you.
And then he said to us, "Be sure that wherever she goes, if you can, use a wheelchair." And that really spooked us. So, anyways, we got her down, and they kept her for a couple of days. Did over 30 tests on her. Some of them, she explained to me, were because they weren't being done to you. They were funny.
Okay.
Like her and I are like this. Eh? Like we everything's funny. Eh?
Yeah.
And, well, especially when I do it, but no, but it's always funnier for me. But they found out that Tammy had a spinal aneurysm, and as the doctor told her, if it was this much closer to the top of her neck, we wouldn't be having the conversation. So that's a pretty scary thing. That's what caused the cardiac issue. This thing ruptured. And he said, good thing was that they did new MRIs and everything, and they did some advanced stuff on an MRI machine. I didn't quite understand it. Obviously, that's why I catch fish and don't operate on brains. I'll leave that up to him.
Amen.
But if somebody's going to cut your spine or your brain open, he's the guy to do it. But the way this thing worked out, because it's interspinal cord, it's 100% inoperable. Will never be able to be operated on. And I guess, she just sort of has to live with it. It had shrunk a little bit, but he wasn't sure if that was natural after the rupture. So we move on, and they let her go, and they said they'll check it in 90 days. Very uncommon, and we moved forward, but it wasn't the dreaded C word, and that's what really scared us.
Amen.
When you mention the C word in spine, that's not a good thing.
No,
that's like having frayed line in a 6-pounder.
I don't know if I've been excited or as excited in a while as that call that I got from you to say that it wasn't cancer, because I'll tell you, you weren't alone. I think we were all kind of thinking.
Well, it's so funny with all the COVID grief they're having at the Ottawa hospital. They let her out of the hospital at 6:00 on the Wednesday night.
Wow. And
you don't usually toss somebody out of the hospital. And she sent me a thing with a whole bunch of bugles and horns and party hats and things, and it said, "Come and get me quick." And I'll put it to you this way: I read it. It was like less than 1 minute. I had the truck started and was backing out of the laneway. Less than a minute. 3.5 hours later, she was back home here, and she had a few really bad days. She had a few days where she literally slept for 18 hours.
Yeah.
But the last couple, she wasn't good today again. She was okay, but she wasn't good. Mm-hmm. But a couple of days ago, she had a day that was like just stellar. So let's hope that this thing is healing up a little bit, and God forbid it ever happens again. It doesn't sound like a fatal thing, but it's definitely having a bit of time bomb stuck in your spine. But it's what it is. We've been through a lot. We'll get on with it and move forward. It's all you can do. You can't sit around and wallow. You really can't. I know some people right now that are rather ill, and I've had some rather frank chats with them about their attitude. You got to take what you're dealt with and make the best of it. You can't roll over and die.
Well, dude, you've been setting that example for a while now. You've dealt with prostate cancer yourself. Tammy's had breast cancer and other ailments and this, that, and everything else. And I'll tell you, you guys have set the standard for all of us to follow when it comes to how to deal with it.
Yeah, that was the other thing. The guy who reads all the MRIs from neurosurgery at the hospital and Dr. Sachs, the doctor, both agree that this was caused by the radiation from her breast cancer.
Wow.
They both agree on that by the MRI. So it's just like me with the trouble in my legs, with the nerves. It's sometimes these things take a long time to work their way through. But she has probably had that in her back for years. Because it's really funny. I would say for the last 5, 6, 7 years, she's often complained about her back. She's often complained about it. And of course, I brought her to see my buddy Danny there, and he did all the dry needling on her. And she has a mild scoliosis, but she was like me in the early part of her life. She skated in ice shows. She actually skated in the ice capades and a lot of stuff like that. And so she has an athletic. She's very athletic, and this never bothered her. I guess just when she stopped using her body so much, it came to roost a bit. And then she started skating again, and it went away. But it always makes me think that maybe some of this was from that problem that had been there that long. Because I guess she's about 8 years clean now from her breast cancer. So,
well, it's true, and in terms of the road that is traveled, Jeanette, she brings up here, and this is another one that sets a great example of how to deal with life. Her son has had 130 chemo treatments for an inoperable brain tumor. He lives his life to the fullest, and that's awesome. Awesome
yep.
to hear. Jim,
I tell you, I'll be joking, and I'll be taking. If I get hit by a bus, I'll be dropping an F-bomb when I realize I'm getting hit. It's just there's no other way to go, boy.
And I'm sure we'll all hear it. I'm sure we will all hear the F-bomb. Jim, speaking of F-bombs, you probably heard a few coming from the Bay of Quinte in terms of, I don't know how many huts. You gave me an idea that there was well over 100 huts out there on the weekend. I know Jay Barnews is going to talk about it because he was one of those 100 huts that were out there.
Yeah, well, like I told you, my buddy that was in that one area, he got to close to 100, and he couldn't see any further to really count them, and he turned and looked the other way, and he was up at 75, and he said, screw it, and started to drill a hole. And he caught a 9-pounder on his first drop. He got one bite all day. He got one bite. He drilled the hole. He put the flasher in the hole, looked down, saw this big mark, dropped the jig and wrap down, lifted it once, and that was it. And he never got another bite or saw fish.
But Jim, having said that, there, 100 huts isn't like an incredible amount of weight. When you start seeing vehicles start to pull out there, as we did in Aurelia, and they start breaking through the ice, then we get a little bit concerned. But talk about that story. Was it you that was telling us at the beginning about walking out and then they ran back because they were sputting through what they thought was going to be 5 inches of ice?
Oh, yeah. No, I had a buddy of mine got out, and he said 5.5, 6.5 inches of ice back and forth. He said it might have been 7 in some, 5 in others, but it was good, clear black ice. He went out a little bit further and it dropped off. It was consistently 5. So they came back in, set up on the 6, 6.5, whatever it was he was on, and they were fishing. There was a bunch of guys who went by and they exchanged pleasantries, and on they went. And he said they got well out of sight or close to it, and all of a sudden he hears, like 10 minutes later, he hears the noise of them coming back in. And the guy said he was spudding on 4 inches of solid clear black ice, and he took the spud and went like that, and it went through with one shot. And he said he just froze, took the spud out, slid backwards very slowly, pushed himself with the spud, turned his fish trap around, and they all went the other way. And it spooked them so much that they went back in past my buddy.
And as cold as it is, Bay Quinte obviously is an animal no different than Lake Winnipeg or some of these other big bodies of water. You were telling us about Lake of the Woods, where you'll get 10, 15 feet high pressure cracks.
Yeah.
Gotta be leery. What might be okay 100 feet behind you might not be the same 100 feet ahead. And never, ever, especially now, take for granted ice thickness. I'm glad they were spudding. I'm glad they did the right thing, tied themselves together with floater suits, and they were being safe about it. But it's nice to know also that it kind of scared them. It kind of spooked them, and they knew the right thing to do, which was.
And these are guys that have a lot of ice savvy. I got the impression, he said, from the way that they were outfitted, they spend a lot of time ice fishing. They spend a lot of time meandering around. They were all tied by the waist with belts to each other, so they know what they're doing. That they're on top of it, and they went to check, and they could have probably pushed on. They might have fell through. They may not have, but maybe they push across it. They don't go through because it is good ice.
Yeah.
And they're coming back at 11 o'clock at night, and all three of them go through, and they find them frozen to the ice next day.
Well, you know what I was talking about it to you today. And I love when I get release videos, especially those big walleye, whether it's Lake Winnipeg, Lake of the Woods, or Bay of Quinte. It doesn't matter where. I love seeing it. But I did share something with you today. As much as I appreciated the fact that this gentleman released these walleye, I was horrified to see the thickness of ice that he was on. Literally, as he was, releasing it under the ice, you could make out the scales on the walleye, and there wasn't much ice. And then, he turns around and there's a cot behind him. Like he actually slept out there, and that scares me.
When you see somebody having a real hard time getting a fish up the hole, it's because the ice is really thin.
Yeah.
Once the hole gets to be this deep, or the ice, gets to be 8-10 inches thick, then it turns into the hole and comes up.
Yeah.
When the ice is 3 or 4 inches thick, it can't get that turn. It won't come up in the hole, and that's the difference, eh? And that's where you see some of that scary stuff. And then there's the other one on the weekend the guy posted, and he puts his hand down and he goes, "No, the ice is like this." Well, I don't care if his hand's half a game the size of my mitt. That's not enough ice to be on.
No, 100%. 100%.
That's not enough ice to be on. And it's once again, it comes back to the same old. But you know what, though? This year we have not heard the same stories about people drowning or going through. I did see a thing on Facebook about some nitwit's car parked at the edge of around Aurelia somewhere.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, I mentioned that.
The car went through.
Yeah.
It's probably a foot of water.
Exactly. I mean, he wasn't, we'll say nitwit, but really he didn't venture too far away from shore. So good on him for doing so and making sure that he called the right people. But that's the problem I have is I've got a lot of friends that are volunteer firemen, and those are the people you call. And now you're putting other people in danger because of your bad decision. So keep that in mind. And hopefully, eventually we will get the message through. But, the fact that we have been delayed when it comes to good ice, at least down here in the Southern Ontario area. I mean, I know out in Saskatchewan, they're dealing with probably at this point 2, maybe even 3 feet of ice, if not more. They've got no issues. Up in Northern Ontario, I'm sure it's well over 2 feet at this point. You have no issues, but down here, it's so sketchy and our weather just changes. I think we had rain on Sunday out this way, and then all of a sudden,
we'll have rain on Wednesday.
And then we've got a flash freeze, and then it's supposed to go up to 2 degrees again on Wednesday. So, yeah, when you start seeing this fluctuation, tell us what happens with the ice when that happens, Jim.
Well, it just doesn't get a chance to stay secure.
Yeah.
It does not take long when it rains on the ice out behind the house here. God knows how much ice is behind here now. Because when I went out of here this morning, it was still a little bit dark. The ice was I could hear it booming.
Yeah.
And I'm probably 150 yards away from the water. And I just stood there and you could just hear that. You could just hear it pushing. And that's at 6:30 in the morning. So it's been cracking all night. Now, it wasn't that cold here this morning. It was only -10. Supposed to be -28 tonight or something like that. And dead calm. So it's going to be booming away. But behind the house here, they have they always put a little skating rink in the bay here, and they were out on it yesterday shoveling it, and they had 4-wheelers on it, plowing it, and everything. There wasn't much snow; it was like this much snow, but they cleaned it all off. No, that was on Saturday, and then on Sunday it went up during the night, and it was so warm all day Sunday that the whole thing went to water again, and it's all frozen again this morning now, like a sheet of glass. But I'm sure there's a foot of ice behind my house now. But mind you go out the bay a little bit out by where all those currents are I talked to you about, and that's all going to be back there. And it's the same old thing. I witnessed it again. We talked. I'm sorry I haven't been on for a couple of weeks, but what was it, 2 weeks ago? We talked about like ice isn't. Internet ice is the most unsafe ice in the world.
Amen.
You see these people and they're out there and they're shoveling. They're building huts. They got trucks behind them, and everyone, here's lots of ice. I put it out this weekend. They go zipping out on the lake beside their house, and they go through.
Yeah.
Oh, the guy had his truck on the ice. Yeah, well, he lives 1,000 miles away from you. He's out in the middle of Saskatchewan, where it's been -400 since 1820. You know what I mean? it's just really cold out there.
And I'd like to think that, those folks have a few years behind them when it comes to experience on how to deal with that area and that body of water. When it comes to Bay Quinte, if there's any advice that I give anyone, it's not where to fish. It's not structure to look for. It's make sure you're going with someone that knows the area.
Yeah.
Heading out to the Bay of Quinte by yourself or Lake Winnipeg or any of these.
Don't fish on your best spot. Fish on the spot with the most ice.
Amen.
Safest ice.
Absolutely.
No, they need so much to be careful on that.
Jim, you are we going to see you out on the hard water anytime soon?
Well, I hope so. I got a bunch of stuff all rigged up here, and I've been feeling a little bit frisky lately. So I got a buddy on Rice Lake there that does a little bit of guiding, and he's got some huts. He's not renting them this year because of COVID again. And I was just chatting with him today, and he said, I said to him, I said, geez, when you get those shacks out there, give me a call. I'll roll down. And he said, are you serious? I said, yeah, sure. He said, oh, geez, I got the skidoo. It's only about 100 yards, but he says, I'll stick your ass on it or run you out. You don't have to worry about it. And get out and do that. And I'm gonna dig the flip over out of the shed here this week and get it in the garage where I can use it if need be. And we got no big snow on the way here, so that makes it a lot easier for me to move.
It was interesting because I think they were expecting a big snowstorm this weekend, and I looked at the weather just before we went to live, and I noticed it's changed.
Well, we had snow go below us here.
Yeah.
The last 2 or 3 times,
it's
just touched Kingston with a skiff. We got nothing, and just on the other side of the St. Lawrence in New York there, they just got blasted.
They did.
And it wasn't a lake effect either. It was like a big, movement coming up.
Yeah.
And the last one went right over top of us. It literally snowed at Peterborough, Kawartha, everything I guess it was last week, and it just went right up over top of us. It hit Ottawa, but missed us. We're just sort of caught in the middle this year. Where, what was it, 2 years ago? It was the exact opposite. I drive to Peterborough. There was almost no snow. I come home and the snowbanks were 3 feet high.
So this is my fear about what's going on right now on Lake Simcoe. They've got quite a snow squall coming off of Georgian Bay. That if they have any ice, it's I don't know how safe it is. Cooch, I heard, was upwards of 4 even 5 inches of ice in some places. But
I think Chong said he had even more.
Oh, is that right?
I think so. Yeah.
Well, you know what? The nice thing is for lakes that have not had snow or are not going to get snow, you're going to get that non-wind, cold temps that's going to do nothing but build ice. But for folks that are heading up to Cooch or Simcoe for that matter, just be wary because as great as snow is to insulate ice, it doesn't allow ice to be made as quickly as when there is none. So keep that in mind as well.
Well, the nice thing about up there when they get snow, you usually get wind or something after it with the cold front coming behind it all the time, and it blows a lot of the snow off and punches it up, so it does clear it up good that it can get. I just noticed there. Mike Howard said he's heard 8 inches on
8 inches.
Heard that from a few guys, but once again, it's not going to be the same everywhere.
Yeah,
and that's where guys get into trouble. Huh?
Tammy, you're with us. You're with the majority of us. 4 inches is pretty much the minimum, I would say. I mean, I've been on 3, but usually it's because I've walked over 4 to get to 3. But needless to say, 4 is what we look for. But I just, as much as I appreciate the videos, I cringe every time. I
never liked skinny ice.
No. Well, especially us heavier set folk. It's a little bit less forgiving than some.
Hey, something else too. When I heard in the beginning, they were talking about the hoodies.
Yes. You
don't ever use the word cheap.
Okay.
You use the word inexpensive.
Well, you know what? At the end of the day, I want to make it so that it's affordable. You know what? That's the proper word. Affordable.
Oh, I know what you mean. Yeah.
But at the end of the day, let's be honest. There's nothing out there right now. You can't take a breath of air and not be charged more than what you did a year ago. Like everything has gone up. It's crazy. I was in True Canadian looking at minnows, the price of minnows, and God love them. I mean, they're keeping us going, these mom and pop tackle shops, but everything is going up. There was a guy that I was having a good laugh with. He said $10 a dozen, but these are like little shiners, $10 a dozen. And I said, yeah, and you know what? You're going to buy them You're going to put them in your bag. You're going to take it over to your buddies or whoever it is that you're going to run into where you're fishing. You're going to say, you know what, I paid for these? And you're going to do it just because you want to flaunt your wealth.
So before I let somebody else have a say tonight, for the love of God, for the love of Big Jim, don't post another picture of somebody fishing out of a snow volcano or a movie with snow this high around the hole, and they lose the fish trying to get the fish up through the volcano. Instead of having it cleaned off at the level of the ice, and you slide the fish out of the hole onto the ice in one nice little motion, and you catch them all.
Now
or else I'm not coming back on the CFN ever.
All right. And Jim, listen, you're 100% right. And as I said, we always try to educate as opposed to humiliate here at CFN. But yes, you bring up a great point. Some folks like to do that for the sake of, having the wind deflect away from the hole, this, that, and everything else. It is a good practice to maintain that you're pushing all your snow away from your hole, because we have.
I said that the other morning, I'm always up early, and the other morning I got up early and looked outside, and I went for a ride down to Gananoque. I had to get gas, so I filled up the truck and went and got a tea for Tammy and a coffee for myself, and I come home, and she got up and she was out in the kitchen, and all of a sudden I yell out of the kitchen, "For the love of God, someone put me down!" And she goes, "What's wrong?" And I showed her a picture. She said, "What? Someone's ice fishing." And she said, "Oh, they lost the fish in the hole." And I go, "Yeah, and if they didn't have that 40 pounds of snow packed up around, they would have caught that fish, because they had it in the air for 5 seconds before it fell off."
I was going to mention, it looks like you got a haircut, but were you pulling your hair out? Is that why it looks a little bit thinner?
No, when I went to the gym, I was really weak. I got the locks got cut.
Wow.
Keep it all battened down.
Well, you know what, Thor, we don't want to tire you out tonight, so we'll leave it to we'll leave it at that. Jim, as always, dude, can't thank you enough for joining our community and spending as much time as you do answering the questions. If you have a question and you want to put it in the comments that it wasn't discussed during our segment, please do. Jim does an admirable job of making sure.
Yeah, I'll try to get back through. I've been really busy last couple of weeks. I apologize for it, but
it's all good, buddy.
I'll make it a point to heckle a few of you, so be careful.
Right on, bud. All right, you take care of yourself. Stay classy.
Always, buddy. Always. Be safe out there, guys.
All the best, my friend. Peace. All right. A legend, I tell you. We are so blessed to have him each and every Monday. And it's really exciting. The next segment that we're going to be doing with Lawrence, we're going to be talking about a podcast that we're going to be cooperating with Bluefish Radio. So stay tuned to that right after this.
When it comes to Canadian food, we've got your back with flavors like lemon pepper, beer batter, campfire barbecue, lemon pepper dill, garlic butter and chives, and crispy Cajun. We've got a mix for every meal. Whether you're serving East Coast shrimp, West Coast salmon, succulent walleye, chicken wings, or veggies, we've got you covered. Coat your food in outdoor flavors. Available online or at these fine retailers.
There he is, Lawrence Gunther. How you doing, my friend?
I'm well, buddy. How are you?
Good. Have you been out on the ice yet?
Yeah, I have. Yeah, a few times now.
Oh, that's right. On the Ottawa River. You were out on the Ottawa.
Just a little lake nearby here. Yeah, but they're fishing on the bays on the Ottawa River now for sure. I haven't been on the river yet, but I don't take my kids out on the frozen river at this point. But I'll take them out on the little lakes around here, and they have a ball. They have a ball, but they're bugging me to get the snowmobile going. So that's the next thing.
Well, you know what? With the temps that we're getting and the weather that we're being faced with this week, I dare say we're going to be making ice just about all over southern, northern, central Ontario, and we're hopefully going to catch up to our western and northern folk who have got plenty of ice. But you can, I don't know if it's just me, but you can gauge the excitement. The number of huts that were out on the Bay of Quinte is just an example. Everybody's excited to get out in the hard water. The unfortunate thing is we still have to be safe. We still have to maintain. Jim and I talked about it just before we came on here. But yeah, it's ever changing, but it's nice to see that you've been out. What fish were you targeting?
Perch and walleye and pike. Yeah. We're just fishing. They're still around the, it's new ice. Last couple of weeks is still kind of considered new ice. So we're focusing on the weed beds still, right?
Yeah.
They're coming in. The weeds are still fairly good shape there, and but they'll soon be cruising out into the deeper water.
Right on. So tell us a little bit about what is upcoming. I know you and I briefly talked about some dates of a segment that we're going to be cooperating with. I know you're excited about it. I know I'm excited about it. Tell us a little bit more.
Wednesday, January 26th, 7 p.m. We're going to do a live Facebook stream with Canadian Fishing Network, of course, and Scotty and the St. Lawrence River Institute for Environmental Studies. They're going to be taking the back end controls and helping out with some of the coordination as well. And they'll be streaming that on their Facebook page. And Bluefish Canada will stream it on our YouTube channel. So what are we streaming? We've got Sean Simmons from the owner of Angler Atlas and the MyCatch app and a couple of his staff explaining how your data is being protected and shared amongst researchers and how it works. We've got some scientists from Saskatchewan. It's going to talk to us how they're using the data that's being collected there. We've got Jeff Wilson. He's the organizer of the Striper Cup on the East Coast, and a professor out from New Brunswick University there, Moncton University, and the anglers, the Atlantic Anglers Challenge that they've had going on for a year, where they use the MyCatch app as well, similar to what Canadian Fishing Network's proposing. And then yourself, Scotty, and we'll talk to you as well. We'll get you. You're going to be one of our panelists. Good. Why are you using this? Why are you going to adopt this? This MyCatch app. People say it's, well, where did it come from? It's taken the country by storm. But Sean's been working on this for years, and I've had him on the podcast before. But we're going to get all these experts together, and really, this is going to be a live opportunity for you to ask the questions of the scientists, of the angler tournament organizers. Why? How does it work? Why do you do it? What's the point of all this? All those 5 W and H questions that good inquisitive minds have, man. So it's going to be a lot of very short little presentations, and then a lot of opportunity for Q&A.
So the way we look at it, and Mike more so than I, have been talking to the owners of the app, owners of Anglers Atlas, and what's really cool, it'd be no different than if say the M&R, say you had a team of biologists at a bass tournament. They won't ask you where you caught the fish. Obviously, they're just going to take samples. Creel samples is what I call it. But any of your catches, all of the information is obviously going to be provided, because that is part of our requirement. At the fish off, they were so excited to hear how, we qualify our catches, because it speaks to their app and exactly what it is that they're looking for when it comes to the science. And as I said, I don't want to say that the gap is a mile wide, but we've got a gap between, the angler information as well as, the biologist. And what this app is now doing is it's shrinking that gap. And I am so stoked that we're going to be piloting it for the Winter Fish Fest. And if you want to know more about it, obviously tune in on that Wednesday it's the 25th, you said?
26th, yeah.
26th.
Yeah.
You're going to learn along with all of us what that app entails, why you would want to get that app, even if you're not going to participate in the CFN Fish Off or Winter Fish Fest. Just how it will impact your fishery as an angler and how you can contribute to that impact. I think it is so friggin' cool.
It is. It really is. And I think, we've seen enough examples of how government scientists and then the policy people and the politics get involved with all that. And you think, well, is this science-based best practices? Are these decisions based on science? Or how much politics are getting involved in skewing these decisions around regulations? And we really don't have anything to compare with. With this kind of research conducted by independent researchers, with our support, and a lot of these researchers now are adding the names of the anglers who contribute the science, who contribute the data, because really you are now part of the research study. You are a contributing author to that study, right? I mean, it's not just the size of the fish. There's so much information you're going to pass on, other than, where you actually caught the fish. I mean, they just really want to know, were you on this lake or this river? Where were you? And but this is going to give a whole new set of very transparent, very open science that people will be able to produce their own reports on what the state of this lake is and the state of these fisheries are. And so we'll have another source of information to say, well, yeah, we can go there and harvest fish and do it sustainably. They have enough fish of this species on this body of water. Or you know what? No, we're seeing a dip in this species on this body of water. Maybe we need to give that a little pause for the cause. We, as anglers using the sciences, we can make better decisions quicker than the government quite often can, and without all that political interference.
Yeah, and for us, from a fish off standpoint, we have always very reluctantly tried to put a cap on the number of anglers that can participate in our fish off, simply because it puts a real onus on our judges to try and wade through all of the entries, and this could potentially put on
Wide open.
open the door. It could just blow it wide open, that we could have way more anglers than we have in the past. So, the thought of that right there is what excites me as well.
Well, he's got over 125,000 anglers registered already. So this is, and the Fraser River Sturgeon Association, they're adopting the MyCatch app. This is really catching on. People want to take some control over their water. They want to take some control over their fisheries. They want to have more say. They want to have the evidence so that they can speak with knowledge, not just, this is what I experienced when I went out there this year compared to last year and the year before. Now you're going to have a whole bunch of science to back up what you know. And then when you go and meet, or when the government asks you for their input, on changing the regulations, there'll be a lot of other science around and well-informed anglers to provide that kind of information. It's super important.
Absolutely. Great question, Steve. So each angler's report is published? Potentially.
No, the data is collected.
Yes.
So it's a data set. And then they look at the data in total. And if they see an odd one here or an odd one there, they call those outliers. Those are people that went fishing and they caught maybe 50 fish, but they didn't catch any keepers. So they just said, I didn't catch anything. Or they said, you know what, I caught 100 fish today. And they just put down 100, weird numbers that really don't fit in with what everyone else is kind of reporting. So that gets sort of eliminated. And then they look at just sort of the mediums, the sort of clusters of data. It's not, you can't make these decisions on one person's experience. It's got to be on a bunch of experiences, eliminate the odd data, and just keep the stuff that sort of shows a trend. And then you can have this trend information. That's what they're looking for.
And really, at the end of the day, that's what we want as anglers as well, right? Like, if for whatever reason they're able to put this data together that will provide us more information to make us even better anglers, like who wouldn't be into that?
Well, exactly. And then, we can practice harvesting as much as we practice catch and release. And we can apply both those strategies when the time is appropriate. And that's such a great thing, because as anglers, we're foragers, right? Just as hunters are foragers. We're out there. We should be able to take fish home and celebrate that catch with our family, with our friends, feed our family some good, wholesome, organic wild food. It saves some money as well. These are all important things that make us connected more to our fisheries, because when you eat the fish that you're catching, you're also making a deeper commitment to make sure that fishery and the water and everything that goes into that water is all hunky-dory. There's no pollution, there's no craziness going on there that's going to ruin it for everybody, because you're actually eating these fish, and you don't want anyone screwing that up.
Yeah, 100%. And one of the reasons too that Mike and I really enjoyed talking to these folks about it was the emphasis when it comes to the CFN fish off is it's species driven, right? Species are wide open. There's no limit on the number of species that you can enter and qualify. So that's why we're doing a pilot with the Winter Fish Fest to see, because it is species specific for the Winter Fish Fest. We'll see how well it runs for that. And as I said, what it'll do is it could quite potentially create a database that doesn't exist for anglers that are looking to target that species that they've never caught before. They wouldn't know the first thing on where to go or what to use or what time of day or yada yada. So it's creating a database of information that will make you a more complete angler and especially a more competitive CFN fish offer.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you want to go out and catch whitefish, and you'll have more opportunities. So you'll know where whitefish are. Like you'll say, oh, there's whitefish in this lake and there's whitefish in that lake. So you'll have more knowledge in terms of where to practice, the kind of fisheries you want to pursue. That's really good stuff. And as from the CFN perspective and other tournament organizers, you could really dial it in and say, look, we're going to, on this day, on this coming Saturday at noon, between noon and 1 o'clock, the person who catches the biggest perch is going to win a prize. You can just a little prize packet. You can do that, right? Yeah. I mean, you can get to that granular level, and people, it gives incentive for people to report stuff in real time, right? Over their phone, say, oh yeah, I want to take part in that. So yeah, you can have a lot of fun with that for sure.
As I said, it's endless. It's really this atlas and this app can potentially create something that we have no idea how big it's going to be. But the fact that CFN is somehow being a part of it is really cool. And I tell you, it's truly our honor that we are. What else is coming up in Bluefish Radio News?
Well, we're going to get the news out again next Monday. So the 17th of January, we'll get the first issue out for 2022. We've got a whole bunch of stories we're chasing down and information we're following up on and podcasts that we're organizing. And, we're hoping that, doing these simulcast live video podcast recordings with CFN as a partner, that could be fun. Get some of these higher profile guests on the show and get some really cool questions, with your feedback, with the listeners' feedback, what kind of things would you like to learn about from these people? And then we'll ask them, we'll put them on the spot. We'll ask them some interesting questions and have a sort of a few interesting segments. So that we're getting a little more sort of breaking down the podcast into segments a little more to make it a little more structured. People like the structure instead of a free-flowing interview. I mean, sometimes a free-flowing interview is just great, but when you got a guest on there and those guests, they need to know what's coming up. They need to have some expectations of what's coming. That can be a lot of fun as well.
Well, if you talk about structure and a guy like Big Jim McLaughlin, let's face it. I mean, I think most of us could sit here and listen to him talk for hours and literally very little structure. You don't try to control anything he says. You just let him ramble. And I for one, I've been doing this, I don't know how many years with the man, and I never, ever, ever get tired of listening to the tales he has to tell. So you're right. You're 100% right. Sometimes a free-flowing conversation is fantastic. But the other thing that, the only slight that I will say about podcasts is there's no interaction. And especially from the audience. And the one thing that I love about our CFN lives, a lot of people say, well, don't you want like 100,000 views, Scotty? Well, I mean, maybe we'll get there one day, but no. What I want is what I'm seeing here is the great comments, the sharing of information. Mad Camp Plastics, who's looking for a place to catch some burbot in and around the Kingston area. You don't get this on a podcast. This is why I love what we do here at CFN Live. And if there's any way that we can help bolster what you are doing, some of the great stuff you're doing over at Bluefish Canada and your podcast, Lawrence, I'm all for. And I agree. This audience interaction, man, it is the bomb.
Yeah, I love it. And it's going to lead to some other ways to get more involved in terms of, pre-interview questions and some post interview follow-up as well. So and as well as some exclusives, right? Because there's certain things we're gonna do that are going to be just for our close followers, people who sign up, who give us who get engaged more actively with the podcast. We will have some special treats for them as well. So some more insights and opportunities to meet and talk with the guests directly. So
fantastic stuff. Well, I'll tell you, Lawrence, as I said, the time flies when we're having fun, but stay tuned to Wednesday, January 26th, we're going to have the folks on from Anglers Atlas, as well as a whole bunch of others that are going to contribute to what I think is going to be a different, I don't want to say revolutionary podcast. That's a little bit dramatic, but it is a different podcast. I'm looking forward to the cooperative effort that we're going to be taking on with you, Lawrence, and your guests. And I'm looking forward to our audience and our community being a huge part of it.
Me too, Scotty, and I appreciate the helping hand, reaching out, and saying, offer to do this with us, and I think it's going to be a great way to co-promote and just build some synergies in what we're doing here and what we're so much alike in what we want to accomplish. It's going to work out well. I'm totally confident.
Right on, brother. Well, you take care. You stay classy, and we will see you next Monday before the 26th.
Sounds good, buddy.
Right on, dude. You take care of yourself.
You too, man. Cheers.
Peace. Right on. Well, J-Dog is next. He's going to tell us what it was like to be on the Bay of Quinte this past weekend. But before we do, here is a word from his sponsor.
Want to know the difference between power bait and other soft plastics? Ask the fish. Berkeley scientists have thousands of flavors tested on thousands of fish. Natural. Man-made. Every bait that's ever hit the water. No matter the shape, size, or color, power bait is the only one that is scientifically proven. Fish bite and will not let go.
J-Dog in the house. How you doing, my friend?
Doing good, Scotty. How are you doing?
Attaboy. Good. Listen, man, I'll tell you, you got my heart beating. Bay of Quinte is, as Captain Ed, I'll call him Captain Ed because I don't think of him as anything less other than a good friend. But Captain Ed has had me on the Bay of Quinte many times and had some great times. I remember being on there as a young man fishing the Belleville area, but I love hearing tales from the Bay. So lay it on me, dude.
Well, man, from where I live here, it's a 4-hour haul to basically to Belleville, and then from Belleville you got more distance to drive, right? So what we did, being as our first trip out of the year, Trevor and I, we left here around 3:45 in the morning, got to Belleville around 7:45. I knew we wouldn't make the morning bite, and with COVID and restrictions and this and that, I said, I'm not going to bother staying overnight. I said, well, let's just go. And to be honest, Scotty, being the first day out on the ice for us, first day out on Quinte, knowing that Quinte ice is what it is, I really didn't feel good. I didn't want to show up to my favorite spots in the dark, and I don't like spudding in the dark unless I've been out in that area already. It doesn't mean I wouldn't go back the next day in the morning and before sunrise and spud my way out. But, I felt just better just arriving at 8:00 or so, getting set up, walking out. And it was good. We went, I don't want to say where we were. Because I'm going to say this. I'll always tell people, I went to Bay of Quinte. I don't want to say where I went, and it has nothing to do with hiding spots. You really have to know what you're doing out there. You need to have your safety gear. So I'll give you a good example. So I have my spud, I have my ice picks around my neck. I like the Rapala ones. They lock together, and they're pretty big. So I got big hands. So floater suit, spuds, and your picks and your ice spud. Know what your ice spud can do. I have a big Eskimo 2-piece spud. I know that if I whack the ice twice and don't go through, I easily have more than 4 inches. If I go through on 2 swings, I'm at less than 4 inches. If I go through on 1 swing, I'm backing up. But even in our sled, we have a drill. We walk single file. Trevor follows. I'm pulling the Smitty sled. He's carrying the auger, our little K drill. My throw rope, my throw line from the boat is in the back of the Smitty sled. We go through the whole drill. If Dad goes through, here's what's going to happen. And it's not even if Dad goes through. There are other people out there. We're prepared to help other people too. But at no point were we scared on Saturday. We never went less than 4 inches. I think the thinnest we were was 4.5. That's no lie, and it was black ice. And we were as thick as 5.5, almost 6 inches in a couple spots. So
holy smoke, 6 inches.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, but we traveled around. large area, there was quite a lot of people were out on Saturday. When we got there, it was like we were late for the parade. We couldn't get a parking spot. But it was good. Actually ran into a bunch of friends that I haven't seen for months, or some of them years. It was good to catch up with friends. We fished all day. Didn't get any giants. We got a few eaters, that sort of 18, 20-inch class. Had some good marks. Weather wasn't great, minus 18 in the morning, high skies. It got up to about -6 or -5 by sunset, but just bluebird skies all day. Now, there was a low pressure system that came through with some rain. I was kind of hoping that low pressure system was going to come through earlier. The original forecast was you were going to see an increase in cloud and a drop in barometric pressure happening in the afternoon. That was the forecast. I was hoping that was going to happen. It didn't. But I will say I'm happy that it came when it did, because when I got to Hamilton, from Hamilton to home, which is normally an hour drive, it was an hour 40, because it was, well, there was more cars in the ditch than on the road for a good chunk of the 403. So if I didn't want to drive from Belleville, like imagine driving, and I've done it before, 4 hours of freezing rain becomes 6 hours. So, so I didn't get the afternoon bite, didn't manifest like I wanted it to, but we caught some fish. We got out, everything worked. The buddy heater worked, the flashers worked, everything worked. Got to try out some new tackle, which we'll talk about in a sec. It was just a good day with friends, and everyone got off the ice safe and sound. That's all you can ask for.
Well, you beat me to the punch, but I'll tell you, there was one bait in particular that I want you to talk about. That I don't want to say. Is it new? Is it brand new, or is it just new to a lot of anglers?
It's not new. It's been around for a few seasons now. Okay, and I'm going to talk about it. And I have no affiliation with these guys. I'm a big fan of YouTube channels, and this is the Frostbite dinner bell. Okay, so I've never used them before. Jay Siemens, Clayton Schick, bunch of other guys who use them on YouTube. They seem like a bit of a gimmick, but you know what? I looked at them. I'm like, you know what? But you can't find them in stores, so I actually wanted to order some. And I'm going to tell you right now, it is a great spoon. Let me give you some details on it. So it's this is the large size. It's a 3/8 ounce. They make them down to a 1/16. So it's tiny. So great for panfish. This one's called Fire Tiger. So it's really green, black, and gold with the red bell. And I'm going to talk about that bell in a second. But some of their glow colors are just amazing. So I caught fish on both these colors. So during the high day, I caught them on the Fire Tiger, and on the low light, I got them on the glow. But I want to show you guys this. So typically, what do we like to use on Quinny? And hey, I still caught fish. My buddy still caught fish on these on the weekend. It's a buckshot.
Gotta love the buckshot, man.
Okay? And you got, so it's a poured spoon. Okay, it's a poured spoon. It's heavy. It goes straight down. It's got, you can't even hear that. It's got a little rattle in there. It's not, but it's surprisingly, compared to the dinner bell, it's not that loud. I'm going to see if this will work. Can you hear that?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's not a rattle. That's just the sound of the little metal piece in there. That's not even. I'm telling you, that's not even the hook. That's the.
Wow.
So you have a combination spoon that it's not a poured spoon like a buckshot. It's a pressed or flattened spoon. So it's got a curve to it. So it actually falls. It'll fall away from your hole, which is kind of nice in some areas when you let your lure free fall away from your hole, and then you can work it back to center. And then when you're jigging it, it'll flutter. So it's a flutter spoon because it's been stamped. It's not poured, but you combine the flutter action with the sound, and it's just a great spoon. I'm impressed, and I used it. So there was 3 of us fishing in our pop-up. We all were trying different spoons, traditional Quinny stuff that I've caught fish on before, and by far that spoon outfished everybody in the high.
So correct me if I'm wrong, Jay, but in a lot of cases it is to your advantage, especially as you mentioned the bluebird skies, to have any kind of spoon or blade bait or whatever that does fall away from the hole. So it goes into, that little bit of a shadow, that little bit of a darkness, because let's face it, that hole sometimes, if you don't have it covered, can
Yeah.
draw a lot of light. And when it gets into those shadows and it starts to clack like it does, drives fish nuts.
Yeah, and I honestly think so. We were talking before the show, and being my first day using this spoon, what I found is I like to draw them in, and then I don't stop my cadence, but I might slow it down. Then I'll try and basically I'll work that bait up and try and get that fish to chase. This spoon makes way more noise than I realized, so I don't have to shake it that hard to get noise out of it. So I think some of the times when I was trying to coax those walleye to chase, I think I was working the spoon too hard. I think that I should have just more done the Dave Gents the pound, which usually what I do when I'm fishing for panfish, I'll actually hold my rod on my knee. So I'm actually I just want the rod tip to dance. I don't want the rod to move at all, really. So I think in some cases I might have been working it too hard, but it was a great bait. I'm impressed with it. It's well built. Question from Steve. Yeah, I tip it. So this is usually what I do on Quinny. This is just what I do, and I don't care what anyone else does. This is what I've learned over the years. I do not use a stinger hook, number one, because I've lost more fish on stingers than I've caught. Okay. The stinger hook will get caught on the edge of the ice, and that when you're dealing with those big Quinny walleye, like those 20 inches, I say little. 20 inches is not a little fish, but in Quinny, it's a small fish.
Yeah.
I'm using like heavy line, man. I'm using 12-pound braid and 12-pound leader, and I'm just cranking them through the hole. They just come right up and through. Those big ones don't do that though, and they'll figure out a way at the last second to tear down and peel line, and they will get that stinger caught in the ice from time to time. So what I do is I take one minnow, I take the head, I pinch it in half. I take the head on one hook, I put the tail on the other hook, and I leave one hook open. I've been doing that for 20 years on Quinny, and that's how I fish a lot of jig and spoons for walleye. If I'm fishing lake trout, I just use, and we had emerald shiners, but I do prefer to use northern red belly days, like the mud minnows. I find that they stay on better, they last longer, and they're a little juicier. Maybe is that the word I want to use, Scotty? Juicier. So yeah.
As long as you don't use the word moist, we're good.
Yeah. Well, they are a little. Emerald shiners are I'll use them because that's what we had, but there's some. Usually the local guys around Quinny have those, but I picked our bait up in Hamilton. It's in the same bait zone.
Yeah.
Which we have to worry about now.
Yes. Yes.
But definitely like the mud minnows around Quinny are great to use, and most guys have them there.
You know, it's interesting, and I know Ed, who's still on here, I don't know what it is about Bay of Quinny, especially fishing walleye through the ice, but they always seem to have a knack for wedging themselves. They very rarely will come up head first. They're very uncooperative, and how many times have you think you're still fighting the fish, but really whatever it is that you're using as your hook or whatever, it's caught on the underside of the ice, and the fish is long gone. They're never cooperative. That's why I love using a bigger hole. Yeah,
I see Ed mentions the live target. So that's the live target. That's their lipless crankbait. So we tried those. I like vibratos. I know buddies who did well a few days before we went on jig and rapalas. We mixed it up. You know, when you got six, it's a game plan. We have 3 guys in the hut. We have 6 lines in the water. It's a game plan. And it was even funny that, I was basically telling what the guys to use. And, but the difference is though, is that, I think for us, like I was using the dinner bell, but I think it was just how I was fishing it. And I think that, Trevor and our buddy Curtis, they weren't fishing it maybe as high in the water column as I was. So in Quinny, it's so clear water. I like to fish that bait high, like 3 feet off bottom. So when I'm fishing with my flasher, I have the 6-foot bottom zoom. I have my bait 3 feet off bottom. Those fish are cruising those mud flats, roaming around looking for food. And I think they can see that bait better when it's higher up, and they'll come in and look at it. They might come in sometimes they'll come in and they might go down and lay under it, and they'll lay under it forever. Okay. But sometimes they'll come in and park right at it, and you got to get them to come up. And I'll always try and get them to chase. Now, sometimes you can use two different ones. So, like, don't be afraid if you got two baits. So, like, here's a Berkeley War Pig crankbait. Okay. So I'm going to throw this on one line, and then, you know, I might have my dinner bell on the other, and I'll be ripping this, making lots of sound. And I can see it on my flasher. They'll come in, look at this, and then they mosey over to this one because that's maybe an easier meal for them. Or they'll come in and just smash the noisy one. You have to read the mood of the fish. And it's always good to have two different. I think it's good to have two different baits until you can dial something in, and work as a team with your friends. Like, we have a group chat, and it's kind of horrible to say this, but like, I spent all day on my phone. Why? Group chatting.
Yeah.
It's cold outside. It was cold enough that it wasn't like good socializing outside. So we're texting each other. What are you using? What depth are you in? We did some subtle movements on the structure, just trying to make it, make the most of our time there. So, you're not alone out there. Work with your friends. And that's why I like ice fishing. I like ice fishing with a group, especially a group of anglers who are like-minded. And we're out there to be successful. And if I'm not successful, but if I help someone else be successful, then I am successful. That's totally good with me. So
absolutely great advice. Absolutely, Deborah. I couldn't agree more. Kevin, I love the fact, not everybody agrees. Some people love using stinger hooks. I know folks who are fishing in current truly love it. Dead sticking especially will love to put a stinger hook. But if you are radically jigging a blade bait spoon or even, a rattle bait like that, I have to agree with Jay. I don't necessarily like the stinger hook.
Yeah, it's not that I don't catch them on the stinger. I've lost them on the stinger at the edge of the ice, like in the hole, or something's happened. Like, I agree. You will hook more fish. You will hook a lot of fish on a stinger hook, but I've also lost a lot of very big fish at the hole because of the stinger. That's my fear. And I'm not out on Quinny to catch. I'm not out to pad my numbers, man. I'm there for one bite. If I can get that, that it's a high 20s. I'm going for a 30-inch walleye is what I'm going for on Quinny.
I think if anybody goes, you're. I mean, hey, I might be wrong, but if you're going to the Bay, Quinny, you're going there for the trophy walleye. If you're going there to fill the freezer,
I am happy to bring a couple eaters home. Like, no fish will not go to waste around here, Scotty, especially walleye through the ice. But I'm not there to catch 18 and 20-inch walleye. I'm there to catch a 30-incher. And if I have to drive 600 kilometers and fish for 10 hours, that's what I'll do.
So I'm so glad, A-Rod, you brought this up from Mad Camp Plastics. Those Walters are frustrating to watch on the camera. Now, I'm glad Jim's not here because we were talking about this before we went live. And we were having a pretty good debate amongst us in regards to what we like to do when we are calling fish in. Now, obviously, there are baits that you've had in your hand, and there's others out there, the TN60s, the TN50s, whatever you're using to call those fish in. Now, when that walleye comes in and you're using a spoon this is just me, a spoon that's not tipped or a rattle bait, are you continuing to have that action? Are you continuing to do exactly what you were doing to call that fish in? Once it's there, are you still mimicking what you were doing to attract that fish? Or are you pausing? Are you what are some of the things that you're doing, Jay, to get them to bite? Obviously, you brought them in, you see them. What are you doing to get them to finally bite?
I'm just trying to read their behavior. Like, sometimes they come in and they're just hot to trot. I don't have to change anything that I'm doing. I'm working that bait. I'm ripping that, that rattle bait, or I'm pounding that spoon, and they just come in and they just smoke it. Then there's times where they come in and they pause, and you got to figure out, and it usually shows them, and Jim and I were talking about this before the show, and we both agree on this, that typically with a flasher, I'm using a Vexlar FLX 28. When you see them come in, it looks like they're coming up to the bait. They're not. They're coming in from the side, but it looks like they're coming up. It's how they come in from the cone angle. Cone angle's here, and as the fish comes across the cone on the screen, it looks like they're coming up, but they're actually coming over. So when I get the fish to come in, I'm just going to try and read their behavior, and I want to figure out what bait they're after, because I have two baits down. And what's funny is, Scotty, is if we got a fish to come in, like our hut is 75 square feet. So we have 3 guys in there, 3 anglers. And if a lot of times I'd get a mark, everybody got a mark. Like that fish did the loop around the hut, checking out all the offerings. Like it was actually comical. Because I wouldn't say if I got a mark. I don't like yelling, I got a fish on my screen. I like working that fish. I don't, it jinxes me. Whereas my colleague over here, he likes to let most of Prince Edward County know he's got a red mark on his flasher. I'm not lying, am I? No, not at all. So, okay.
Love it.
And so, but we try not to, you sometimes you have to adjust your cadence, but you don't know what to do yet. And so it's just important to replicate what you're doing. And this is no different than when you're fishing open water, frozen water. You know, if you're fishing a frog for a largemouth, where did you throw that frog? How were you working that frog? Were you pausing it? Were you working it fast? You have to repeat the cadence for what you did. And the mood of the fish changes during the day when you're ice fishing, especially. So you have to adjust that cadence through the day. Like, so Scotty, like I was basically like the fish we caught during the day, like we caught fish all day, but we'd go, like we'd catch a fish and then another hour would go by with a mark or two, then catch a fish. So like we would just, I wasn't dead sticking it, but I was being I couldn't get them to come in and commit on a hard stroke. I'd have to just kind of tease them. But later in the day, as the sun started to set around, and as the evening bite started probably around 3:30, and then it wasn't dark until 5:30. But as that sun's going down, more marks were coming through and more aggressive fish were coming through. And so you could basically keep your cadence going. You don't have to tease them. But as ice anglers, we all have to be aware of what cadence is working to get them to bite. I don't care whether it's a walleye, a crappie. There's so many species of fish that we fish for that come in and look. Now, some species like, let's say lake trout or splake or brook trout that I've caught, like they just come in and kamikaze it, come in, grab it and run. But there's so many species we chase where they come in and they look. And I'm cameras are fun, but cameras are also really frustrating for me because then I can actually see what's going on. And I also try to pack pretty light, but it would be nice to look at a camera sometimes. But during that peak bite, when they're biting that peak bite window, just pay attention to what you're doing and try and replicate what you're doing and work as a group. So if you're with other anglers, try and replicate. And it's not, sometimes you can use the same spoon with 2 different results. And I saw that on Saturday.
Yeah. Now, you know, again, Kevin, you're 100% right. Totally agree. You have to read the fish. And of course, every day is going to be a different day when you're fishing. When I'm using a live bait or even a live minnow or a real minnow on a jig, sometimes I find you'll do what you can to jig them to attract them in, and for whatever reason, they seem to hit the minute you stop. That pause is so crucial when you're using a minnow. At least in my opinion, I find that 90% of my strikes come on that pause, where you just literally have the bait sit there still like a dead stick. And I don't know what it is, whether that just triggers the brain of the walleye. You know what? I just spooked this minnow. He's sitting there. He thinks I don't see him, and now I'm going to smack it. But as I said, everybody's different. Everybody has different preferences. And as Ed mentioned, you know, he only fishes one line on the bay. They lose interest if too many choices. I find that just sums up my dating career back in my 20s. Yeah, absolutely. There were just too many choices.
Well, and that's a great point, Ed, because so yesterday was the second time I fished the bay in a hub style shelter. Like for years and years, I have a 1-man clam Kenai Pro. That's what I've been using for, 15 years on the bay. And it's small. Like I'm a big guy, man. Like I'm claustrophobic in that thing, you know, and I'm fishing a lane. Like I only like to use one rod when I'm fishing in it because I have 2 holes, one for the flasher, one for the rod. And even my long rods are too long in that clam, right? I'm used to fishing by myself, but I also run around a lot. So now I'm in a hub. I'm not as mobile. And so I'm thinking, I was thinking this, and Ed probably agrees with me on this. I'm thinking this on Saturday. I'm like, there's friggin' 6 lures hanging under this hub right now. If I'm a walleye coming through here, this is like a Christmas tree. Like, what do I do in here? Like, and we know it's gin clear water. We know they can see down. We can see down 10 or 12 feet. I just think that I think we're giving them too many offerings. I think we should work as one, meaning, okay, there's 3 of us. We should have each used one bait. And if a certain bait happens to be the one that's working, because I always have extras. So then we just share those extras, right?
Yeah.
Like, like I have 2, I got 2 of those, and I got 2 of these, and
6 of those and a dozen of that. Yeah, no, absolutely.
Never get one.
You can never have enough.
Never
One thing we have not talked about, and I know you and I have talked at great length off camera, is in regards to the sustainable bait management regs that have been updated this year. They took effect January 1st of 2022.
Mm-hmm.
I did my best to read through some of them, today at lunch. And, really at the end of the day, it's pretty straightforward. I don't want to say that I know everything, but, in terms of what you need to know, basically they break it down in terms of zones. Now, whether you agree, disagree, that's not what we're trying to debate here. But basically, if you're in the yellow, you can take bait from the yellow and only the yellow. If you are in the brown or black or whatever you want to call it, you can buy bait within zone 15 and use it within zone 15. What you can't do is you can't take the bait from 15, go to 18, 17, or 16 or north. So they've color-coded the province of Ontario, and as long as you're purchasing bait within that color-coded area, you can use that bait in the color-coded area. You just can't transport it anywhere else.
Yeah.
Now, Jay and I are going to do a lot more research on it so that we can become better educated, so we can educate you folks. This is a forever evolving document, as Jay and I have attested to. I do believe that the 34 species of minnows that they have listed here is probably going to shrink. As you mentioned, Jay, before we went on, it's 34 now. What do you anticipate? I'm thinking it's probably going to be down to like 12.
Yeah, they were discussing reducing the number of species, because there are some species that are similar to. So there are some species of fish that are on the live bait list that are similar to endangered species. There are also some species that are similar to invasive species, and so they want to just reduce the options available to anglers. And it's not, and even by reducing it, they're not taking away. These aren't common species they're taking away, like some of the species of red horse. Like you don't need to use a golden red horse, for live bait. But I will comment. So that list of species might be updated soon.
Yeah,
like this year, let's say. Remember in the last regs, the 3-rod carp rule came into play after the regs came out. It was like an additional an update, like, because they do it for 2 years, right? Yeah. So it's like a midterm update was the carp 3 rods. So you're gonna see, I think, some of the bait fish is going to be updated in the next year or so. But David comments here about zone 15, and this is one of the things that Scotty and I were talking about. So, for me and for a lot of anglers, if I want to go up to Haliburton and Minden, let's say I want to go into zone 15, bait zone 15, I'm driving up Highway 11. I'm going to stop at
Elwood Epps.
I'm going to stop at Epps. Like, that's where I always stop.
Yep.
Grab a couple scoops of shiners and then head into Haliburton. We used to do a lake trout trip into Haliburton every year or two, me and my buddies. And I would buy some, usually just emerald shiners from Elwood Epps. I can't now. Elwood Epps is in zone 16. It's not in zone 17. It's just south of zone 15. Mm-hmm. So what has to happen is, and it will happen, is those bait shops and dealers in 15 will basically have to, increase their sales, and they might have to get more bait in, or there might be more bait licenses available for zone 15, or, but there are shops in Minden, there are shops in Haliburton, there's a shop in Norland. Norland is just on the edge of zone 15 and 17, but Norland is in zone 15. But what it means is, and there's a couple shops in Gravenhurst. Like I'm not taking away from anybody here, but there's just not a lot of shops in zone 15 because everybody was buying their bait going up Highway 11 or going up Highway 400. I'm not everybody, I'm sorry, but a good proportion of the Southern Ontario anglers were buying their bait headed north.
Yep.
So and then the same thing from coming down. People are buying their bait up in North Bay or Sudbury. And so it's that zone 15 that's going to be a challenge for if you're going to use live bait. You don't always need to use live bait, but and I've even asked, I can't, because sometimes I used to kill the shiners and salt them and freeze them. I can't do that either. And you have to have your receipt on you all times, and your receipt's only good for 2 weeks. So the regs are pretty straightforward, but they're pretty intense. But why are they doing it? Because there's too many things happen. There's too many invasive species going into inland lakes. It's not the Great Lakes. That's why that's why I'm permitted to buy shiners in Hamel and take them to the Bay of Quinte, because I'm within that Great Lakes zone, that southern zone. But zone 15 is going to be a challenge, but there's also so many sensitive lakes in that area because you have Algonquin Park in that zone too.
And that's it. And you know what? For the Elwood apps of the world, Tremblays, whatever you want to call it, I mean, all those stores that have been hit so hard with what's going on with the pandemic, my heart does go out to you because, yeah, this is not flattering by any means, and it's certainly not going to make your lives any better. And I know there's a lot of people that are upset. There is a workshop coming up, Jay. I don't know what the date is, but I'm pretty sure you do. That anybody basically has the ability to become a part of it so that you could be a little bit more educated. What Jay and I were thinking of doing is right after that workshop takes place, that we would book one of these, whether it be a Wednesday or a Thursday night, and we'll go through some of the stuff that was discussed. If you have any questions after that workshop is done, as I said, I'm going to make sure that I get long in the tooth in regards to knowing this so that we could pass that on to you guys and gals. But at the end of the day, you're right. It is something new for folks outside of Ontario. You're sitting there going, what are you talking about? We haven't been using live bait for years. What are you crying about? Well, it is different for us, and we do have to, manage it. We do have to cope. I know there's a lot of folks out there that have said, whatever. I'm just going to throw it in the trunk. I'm not even going to worry about any of the nonsense. I'm telling you, don't get caught. That's the only thing. I don't know how stiff the penalties are going to be, but I have heard it's going to be pretty intense.
Yeah, so Christina, you're asking about using bait in the Great Lakes around Sudbury. So it's not the Great Lakes zones that are the issue. It's using bait inland. So if you're going to go buy bait in Sudbury and go fish Georgian Bay, like the north end of Georgian Bay off of Manitoulin or the North Channel, you're fine because you're going into the – if you're staying in your zone, number one, try and fish in your bait management zone. So look at where I am, anything from basically Windsor to Ottawa, I'm in my zone. And if I buy bait, that's fine. Got to keep my receipt. That's fine. It's good. And that receipt's good for 2 weeks. If you're going to fish outside of your bait management zone, then you have to understand where to get bait outside of your zone. So, Christina, again, if you're going to go fish the Great Lakes, though, you're fine. Because if the Great Lakes bump up against your zone. So I'm in zone 16. I'm in the southern zone. If I want to go fish Long Point Bay, I can. It's right. It's Lake Erie. It's all part of, basically, it's whatever Great Lakes are bordering your zone. Yeah. But for a lot of us southern anglers and even northern anglers going from zone 8 to 9, and if you're right on the border and the bait shop's like 20 minutes over here, but I can't buy bait because I'm going, the bait shop's 20 minutes west and I'm driving 30 minutes east to go fishing and I'm on the line. That's where it's going to hurt. And so we're going to see more bait shops open. There's opportunity here for a lot of people to open up bait shops in the winter.
We might unfortunately see some close, but hopefully those that are closing will take that opportunity to sell and relocate in hopes that they'll be able to revitalize themselves somewhere.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I'm not saying I agree with all the regs, but I'm just saying there's going to be there's an adjustment period we have to go through for bait, and that's it. And hopefully that, like, I think there's the positive is that there will be an opportunity for bait shops to expand or to open more. That's what I think. And if you like even like a gas station, I'm thinking like if you're a gas station up in like Whitney and you want to sell bait now, good time to get in. Get yourself build yourself a garage, a little garage and a tank, and you're gonna make some money. I'm serious.
I'll tell you, because the licensing fees to sell bait, did you see what it's nothing.
Yeah.
It's chump change.
It's nothing. Yeah.
I don't know, if everybody's going to qualify for that license, but if you do, you're not going to have to, fork out a lot of money in order to sell bait and make money off it. You buy.
Yeah, like if you own a gas station or a corner store in some hamlet, like I'm thinking, could be Barry's Bay, Arnprior, wherever you are. Open up, build yourself a 10 by 10 shed, drop a tank in there, and sell some minnows. And you're going to make some money right now. There's a lot of opportunity out there right now if you want to sell some bait.
Jeanette, you're 100% right. It is under $200 to gain a license to sell bait. It's not a lot of money. But you're 100% right, A-Rod. The question is, how will they police all this?
I know.
100%.
Yeah. And again, they're policing the minority. The majority of us do the right thing. It's the minority of us that don't do the right thing. And you know what? Doesn't matter what part of fish and wildlife recreation you're part of, hunting or fishing. The majority of us do the right thing. The vast majority of us. Right?
Steve, a lot of people echo your same sentiment that this is the start of the demise of live bait. I know there's a lot of folks out there that are currently selling live bait that will echo this and agree with you 100%. There's a lot of angry people out there in regards to it as well. Again, my thoughts and prayers go out to the Elwood Epps of the world that unfortunately are going to be hit very, very hard with this. But it is something that Jay and I are going to follow up on and make sure that we become a little bit more educated, or a lot more educated, so that we can pass any of the questions on, any of the answers to your questions onto you guys, so that we are in the know and we're not putting you guys in harm's way.
And I think people should understand that we have it pretty good in Ontario, even with the current bait fish regs that we have. Like even with these tighter restrictions, we still have it better here for using live bait versus other provinces. They're much stricter than we are.
Yeah.
And so let's not, what I'm always worried about is it's not always greener on the other side, man. Like we should be kind of happy with what we have here for now. It's not great, but it could be worse. Right. So
you, Richard, if you're in your area, I completely agree. I thought of you out in the Arnprior area. You're landlocked, and this doubling back, it is cumbersome. Something you're definitely going to get. It's not perfect. I will say, based on what I've read, it is definitely not perfect. Tasha, you asked a great question. Are you allowed to trap your own bait? Yes, as a matter of fact, you are. Yeah. It's just the transportation of that trap bait that they're trying to restrict. So yes, absolutely.
Yeah, and if you're trapping bait and you stay within your own bait management zone, then I don't think there's an issue. It's the transportation outside of your zone. So if I go fishing in zone 15 and I have live bait on me, I have to produce a receipt from zone 15.
Absolutely.
If I'm fishing in zone 16 where I live, I don't have to produce a receipt. I'll have it on me. I think it's good to keep those receipts on you, truthfully, just so if someone asks you if you can stop for your license, here's my bait receipt. Yeah, here's my license. I live here. Have it with you. I think it's a good practice now. But in the end, it's more about the transportation of bait.
Yeah, 100%. Oh, Jeanette, that, see, as I said, it's not perfect. So there's a lake that borders both provinces. Yeah. Good luck policing that.
Yep. And Kevin's saying in Manitoba, they already have a 5-year plan to eliminate live bait. Yep. It's coming. It's coming, people, because there's a lot of problems with live bait and policing it. It is. And if people can't police things, they just want to end things. Right. And That's unfortunate, but that's reality.
It unfortunately is. And yes, Tasha, I was saying, you guys haven't been allowed to use live minnows for some time now. So,
Yep.
this is old hat for folks like you. So, you look at us Ontario and it's like, oh, poor baby. But it is. It's unfortunate. It is a road. Unfortunately, I don't know if we necessarily had to go down. If we could have somehow governed ourselves accordingly so that they wouldn't have to implement stuff like this.
Yeah.
Perhaps, this wouldn't have never happened. Who knows? But here's
Now,
what it is.
the brighter side of all this is that let's say you're going to go fish for perch. Okay. I haven't fished a minnow for a perch in probably 10 years. Don't use them. I use maggots and waxworms, or plastics. Like, I don't use minnows for perch ever. Even crappie, bluegill, all those panfish, I never use minnows anymore. Like, I've gotten away from those entirely. I mean, a lot of it's because, Scotty, I want to go fishing on a whim. I don't want to rely on minnows, and so I've learned to just go without them, right? So yeah, I know I just finished saying about my trip to Quinny, and I got live bait to go there, and I would prefer to fish Quinny with live bait, but I think what will happen is we'll see salted bait and that come in that our colleagues, Scotty, are out in Saskatchewan and Alberta that are using salted minnows. You're going to see that come in, and if someone gets smart on that early, I'm throwing this out there. This is my thought. Get smart on that in the next 5 years, because if you could start selling salted minnows to bait shops, we already have bait to go.
Yeah.
Scotty, I'm just putting
amen, brother. Absolutely.
Putting that out there. Okay.
100%. Yeah, Richard, this has been brought up by some folks who are selling, they're all getting their bait from the same supplier. In most cases, it's within the zone that they're being transported. Your area might be slightly different, but I know at least down here, all the suppliers are from within the zone. So
yeah,
it's a little bit different for us than it is for you. Jay, we could talk about it till
I know.
But at the end of the day, dude, you and I will hopefully both of us will be able to listen to that workshop.
Yep.
And get a little bit more educated so that we can bring that to the community and hopefully educate enough so that you guys can pass that information on to the rest of anglers.
Absolutely.
Anything else coming up, Jay, that you wanted to mention before we go?
Dude, it's hitting -17 in the banana belt tonight. So the bananas are officially off the trees. There's someone over here doing a happy ice fishing dance as he's rigging rods for our first panfish trip. I expect to see some crappies through the ice in a couple days. Yeah, it's going to be good. So, and I'm going to leave on closing with this tonight. And I've been thinking about this a lot the last couple weeks. Everyone's asking me about what gear is most important for ice fishing. Get yourself a spud. Please buy yourself a spud. Amen. I talked to some anglers online today that are pretty experienced anglers. Stop relying on using your boot and kicking in the ice to check how thick it is. Okay? Use a spud. Figure out how to get one. Canadian Tire sells a wood spud that's 2 pieces. My buddy had one on the weekend. It's as nice as my Eskimo spud and cheaper. So get a spud, use a spud, and know how to use it. Know what it tells you. That's my advice as we're going into our safe ice season, but we're not quite there yet for some bodies of water.
Jay, what I might suggest next time if you're out on the ice, I think it would come better from you than any of us. If you can give us a simple technique, maybe a minute-long video on exactly what it is you're talking about, it'd be great to share so that folks know.
All right.
Right on, dude.
I'm going to tell my director over here we're going to do something for next week.
Beautiful.
Right? Okay. All right.
All right,
Sounds
Trevor.
Good.
Jay, you guys have a great night.
Thanks, guys.
We'll see you next Monday.
See you next Monday.
Nice. Well, that's the end of our show, guys, and a great show as it was. As I said, lots of exciting stuff going on, lots of exciting news. More so than anything, let Mother Nature build some ice, some safe ice so that we can get out and enjoy some great hard water action. In the meantime, stay classy. Love you all, and I hope everyone has a great week, and I look forward to seeing some great picks in the CFN inbox throughout the weekend, throughout the week, what have you. But in the meantime, let me leave you with our intro. We're going to use this as an outro because we are going to be putting one together very soon. And as I said, all the best. Thanks for joining us. You take care. Peace.
Never seen a smile so big on my little old lady's face until I tell her I'm going fishing all weekend. Pack up all of my bait and I make plans for 7:45 and I swing around, pick up my date for the weekend. Some reason she seems to please when I'm leaving. There's something I'm missing when I'm gone fishing. When I'm gone fishing. When I'm gone fishing.
Yeah, baby.
Yes, sir.